Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Filippo Padaroni, and I'm the training center coordinator at the EU SME Center. And I'm very happy to have you here, both on site and online, for this event that we organized together with the European Chamber of Commerce that's titled Great Development in China, Opportunities and Challenges for European SMEs. Have the first keynote speech, Natalie Yeo from Terao. She's gonna have introduced the Great Development article that actually we published on the website of the USG Center some months ago, where she will explore the opportunities and challenges that the green sector offers to European SMEs. I think that I can leave the floor to Natalie, who's going to introduce the report.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's very nice to be here with you all, and glad that the room is so full, and means that a lot of people are interested by green development. Just the introduction of myself. So even if you don't guess, but I've been here for 14 years, and so that's why I could see the evolution of the green development in China from the very polluted China to now. I'm specialized in the sustainable buildings, so green buildings, especially some certification like BREEAM from the UK, Life, which is the luxury retail LVMH certification. HQE is a French one, and of course you have LEED. My colleagues are more specialized in LEED. I've been an experienced site manager for the French embassy in Beijing actually before, so he was very hands-on experience, very interesting. Energy audits, corporate carbon footprint, we can also calculate for you. And I'm also a Climate Crest participator. I don't know if you heard of Climate Crest. Is a Chinese name is a Chihopitu. The very nice game to understand the climate change cause and consequence into your company and do this for PSG purpose. Very interesting. A small presentation of our company. So Terao, we are a French company, as you can hear from my accent. We are from France, and then we developed in China first, and also in Colombia, and after in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Thailand, in Malaysia. So this is us. We have been for about 20 years in China. So that's why we have some experience in the factories, in commercial, in offices, sustainable buildings. The business units are composed on the low carbon design, which is like to prepare the building to be low carbon from the beginning, from the design phase, and also to calculate the carbon footprint. This is also part of it. You have energy efficiency, and this is like energy audits when you have an existing building and you want to compare the cost of your energy. So then we go on site, we do energy audits. For example, for the textile industry, they are asking a lot count because they want to reach their target for low carbon. And the business unit green building certification, we call the green building certification below, like the LEED, GPNL, PUNIP, what I said before. Okay, and the example of the customer are the factories, the retail IKEA, the luxury LVMH because French is French luxury, and Schneider Electric, for example, also doing a lot of audits for the factories because they are very well implemented in the factories. So their clients are asking for energy audits, so they are also asking us to do the energy audits. Okay, about the summit, how do we see green development in China? So do you have some idea? I guess you understand because this is a very large topic. It's quite impossible to summarize because China is doing a lot in the sector, is doing a lot. So just let's start from maybe the history. Maybe if you have been in China for long enough, you must remember the big pollution episodes. So I don't know if you were here. I mean, in Shenzhen, I don't know how it was, the pollution, but in Beijing, I remember we had to wear the mask. It was horrible. Even my sister said, "Why you have every day to wear a mask? What is this like? It's not possible. You cannot say that." And so, of course, the government take this into their hands, and they really improve the air. So you can see now, okay, this is the Orbitan City, and now the PM 2.5 has dropped down from the 500. We have many days with over 500 micrograms per cubic meters to 38. Before every day we have to check the AQI, AQ every day, and now maybe every day we see the blue sky. So this is very good news because China has taken this in their hands, and also over 70% of China's rivers were polluted. And now, how did they do this? Okay, maybe the first change what was in the ministry. So the government have changed their structure, and now the Ministry of Ecology and Environment (MEP), the corporate CN. If you go to their website, actually they started to monitor, because first you need to know what is the pollution. You need to monitor. So before, nobody knows how much is the pollution, and now if you go to the website, they have developed so much the data, so you can see the air pollution, the water quality, the seawater, and they have developed all this data very digitalized, so it went very quickly and very broad. So that's why these are very important sectors. So they manage to make the rivers better again, and then also the forest, to replant some forest by all this monitoring. Uh, Okay, and then after we have of course, the 5-year plan. Actually, the sustainable goals were starting since the 11th 5-year plan, but now we're just talking about the most recent 5-year plan, where actually the total carbon goal was set. So the total carbon goal, now everybody knows it, is the peak in 2030 and the carbon neutrality in 2060. So for China. Here, because my sector, we focus more on energy. So, for example, they had required that the new buildings all apply for the green building certifications, especially the public buildings, not all the commercial or but the public buildings. So they need to reduce their energy consumption by 13.5%. And then, yes, you see 70% of the new public buildings need to have a green building certification. Also, there is a strong push for the VIPV. So if you work in the solar PV sector, they are very keen on building the solar integrated on the roof. And here is an example of Shenzhen. So Shenzhen Ping'an IFC got the LEED Platinum. So for the LEED, actually, the first LEED building in China was in 2001. And now China is the first country in terms of number of LEED certifications. So even before the US, so it's at the top. So yes, now really China is pushing. Of course, you have the surface, you have the real estate. It's what's going well. Now it's a bit slowed down, but it's still the first position. And very important, of course, is the money. So China has brought a lot of green bonds, green credits to foster the development of green technology and green installations. So we are talking about trillions of renminbi. So here you can see the evolution of the financial in the budget for his green green loans, and it's growing. It's not decreasing. So the China is pushing hard on this, and so that's how they brought a lot of they invested a lot in a lot of infrastructure. So I as the wastewater treatment plants, and that's how the rivers became less and less polluted because of this. So you can see some statistic about the grade of the rivers that before it was maybe 59% that have the good grade, you can say, and now it's 85% of the rivers. So it's a very good evolution. Okay, this is an example of Inner Mongolia 1 gigawatt solar farm. And this has been funded 70% by green bonds, actually. And what I want to say is for solar in China. So now the solar capacity in China has reached 886 gigawatts. So that's a lot. And actually is almost the half of the world capacity. The world capacity in solar is maybe 2 gigawatt, and in China is over 800 gigawatt. That's probably 200. Maybe this you are more familiar. Is the tariff adjustment and green vehicle is so great opportunities. China actually had some greener tariff for some products that are considered really low carbon. So, for example, here you have low carbon concrete. If your company in Europe produce some very green, high technology products, then there is a greener tariff in China to import these products. So actually, it encouraged the companies here to use more green products from abroad. For example, you have low carbon concrete, insulation material. They also have better tariffs on recycled copper some example for building a smart HVAC system. But anything that is very high tech and green technology for China, then it's very have a better tariff. And on the other side, you have the CBAM. So I think everybody heard about CBAM. So the carbon border adjustment mechanism, where Europe will foster, I mean, it will push the Chinese producers to make their factory greener because we have to calculate the carbon footprint of each product. So this will make Chinese exporters to reduce the carbon footprint. Some tax reductions and exemptions. So this is some example. Actually, in Guangzhou, it's very, very good environment for the companies to do green technologies because if we have the green tech like energy, renewable energy, wind farm, instead of the 25% corporate income tax, you can have 15%. So this is a very good incentive, we can say. Also for Zhejiang province, for example, if you have a green factory or you are having a green product, the land will be cheaper for you. So these are the kind of provinces that provide some incentive for the so Zhejiang, Guangdong, Jiangsu. They are very keen on this. So big certainly. Okay, opportunities. I come from a consultancy company, so for us there are a lot of opportunities because actually maybe some customers are a bit lost around all these regulations, the CBAM, everything. So they are asking us, and consultancy is doing very good because you have to report everything. You have to report your ESG, you have to report your SBTI, you have to report a lot of things. So EcoVadis, maybe you have heard of it. EcoVadis is the label for certified, I'll say, rate if you are a green company or not. So the green and sustainability consultancy is a very good opportunity, actually. So, for example, also you have ISO 50001 is the energy management certification. This is also a good for companies who want some ongoing energy management. Okay, so this is the same as the ESG service. Now, ESG is very popular. Before, nobody knows when I say I'm doing rebuilding, nobody knows what it is. And now when I just say I'm doing ESG, okay, ESG. So yes, ESG service is becoming more popular. But there is, I think, there is place for everybody because ESG is very large topic. So there is environmental, social, governance. That actually inside it includes a lot of topics. So you have, of course, the training on the employees, your carbon footprint, but also the building certification and also your product certification, even if it's green, if you are polluting, if your factory is polluting, so it includes a lot of topics. Okay, if your company is producing some very high-tech products like environmental technology, like the waste management is very focused, a big focus for China. Water treatment, air pollution control, food digester, but anything also solar PV, of course, batteries, the batteries, I think we have some batteries provider here. If your company is between Europe and China is doing this technology, China is welcoming this technology. So, and have a good incentive and green tariffs as we saw before. Renewable energy, yes, exactly. In Guangdong, actually, Guangdong province have a very good, really want to install a lot of offshore wind. Yes, so the goal is to install 430 gigawatts by 2030. So this is a big goal. So if you are working in anything about wind turbines, please go to Guangdong and purchase. You need to find the government or any project. There will be a lot of projects around this. Energy storage, of course, and grid integration, anything about energy. Okay, challenges, I will try to go a bit faster. So, of course, the challenges is to be up to date for the regulations because there are always some new regulations. The Ministry of Ecology will always give you some not challenges, but they don't want to have more pollution. So, of course, they are very careful. So the BC letters of EIA, the environmental impact assessment. Every time you start a new project, we have to do this assessment. So it can be a bit daunting in the beginning when you have to provide the reports, everything. So this takes some time. So it can be a challenge. Okay, pollution control. If you're in a factory, of course, the environmental department will check. I can see that when we do the energy audit, it's a very big topic. Every time we ask, what is this machine? Oh, it's for the environmental department. You want us to check the monitoring of the pollution. So it's not a fake, it's real. Waste management. Oh yes, waste management is has very good development, especially in the Guangdong province, Guangzhou. We have done a study for LBMH actually because they really want to check how the waste is recycled. The construction waste is recycled in each different cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and we saw in Guangzhou is very well sorted. The construction waste are very well sorted, so it's really impressive because in Guangzhou, Guangdong province, they have really a good policy about waste management. Okay, data protection, we challenge that the data that you will collect here, maybe for energy management or anything related to data, you have to keep it in China. So this may be a challenge. Okay, and this is the last slide. So for China green development, you have some opportunities, as you saw, but many it's very difficult to summarize in one presentation. So we can talk more later. Of course, you have to understand the regulatory landscape, and then you have some incentives that you need to check in different provinces, like we said, Guangdong, Zhejiang, Jiangsu. And of course, yes, it's not about just about responsibility, but to really work towards sustainable future.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I just want to remind to everyone that on the SME Sector website, we have the article that are all prepared, out of which that Natalie prepared this presentation. I'll make sure that you will receive the link. It's a quick article that you can really skim through for an understanding of the opportunities and challenges that here Natalie outlined. Now, I think we can go into the second part of the presentation, and I will invite Dan Prami to deliver this presentation on the update on the European Commission simplified books on sustainable manufacturing.
For people who don't go to CERT, it's a UBIC-based ST inspection certification body, keeping the business for about 160 years. More than 160 years, we have about 40,000 employees globally. We have about 4,000 people who work in China. The core business used to be safety across all the sectors, from the consumer to industrial, automotive, medical, buildings. And over the years, sustainability has become a core pillar of services. Now, globally, a third of our business is related to sustainability services, be it of the e-sector or the renewable. So, in the auto business, it's focusing on AI and cybersecurity. So all the new technologies are impact of humanity and making say, look, this is what we work on as an organization. So lots of audit from partnership. And myself, been in China for 13 years. In the last 7 years, I focus primarily on all the new technologies and the impact of new technologies on regulations. So I work a lot with the European Commission on policy making and subsequently harmonization, service build up, and go into market. So I kind of see this as an 8-year cycle across the different technologies that I worked on. So from creating the first policy to regulation coming on board, standardization, and the business accepting it, it's about 8 years is what I have learned by working with TUSU for about 22 years now. So these have gone through one 8-year cycle, the 3 technologies, cybersecurity, AI, stability, and but that's about what the team does here. I'm just purely going to talk about regulation. So it's a dry topic. It's very difficult to make it interesting. So if you have questions, stop me, because sitting in policy meetings over the years, I have worked with. So everybody knows the EU Green Deal. So we also try to tell the story in a 5-year plan, because since we are in China, everybody understands the 5-year plan. It came out in 2017, where the whole EU Green Deal was about focusing on carbon reduction and looking at circular economy. I mean, within the right, you have seen all these observations coming up like circular economy action plan and making more regulations to reduce GHG. And there's been a lot of progress made on this topic from a European Union perspective. And we see that there's been a lot of regulations that been created as a basis of Green Deal. And this was primarily done in the first 5 years. And the second 5 years was looking at how we change the European perspective to a changed global system now. Because 2019 to 2024, the world check saw a lot of changes. And we had COVID, which changed the market playing conditions. And subsequently, the playing field has changed considerably. And the last couple of years, we are being able to be working with updated policy of how to make it more practical and more easy for the businesses. So one of the good things for SMEs and businesses, it's about these regulations are being brought down with it to make it more easier rather than make it really difficult or clear. Yes. The principle level is the right thing to do, but in terms of making Europe more competitive, we would need to make sure that the regulations are balanced with tolerances. So that is the main difference for the next 5 years on some of the changes we will talk through. So this is a snapshot of the various regulations. So as a result of the Green Deal, so most of this was published completely back in 2019. In the left-hand side, you see the different topics from textile directive to battery, EU battery regulations to sync out what Napi mentioned earlier, corporate sustainable reporting, Kubernetes app. So there is a whole list of them. That's just a snapshot of them. And you could see where we are in 2024, 2025, and how things are evolving. And this framework is more or less from the Green Deal, and this list is extremely long. I just got the keeping to a quick snapshot on segments that might be interested to some of the colleagues here. And if there are other areas that you're looking for, let us know and then pull up your this is specific requirement how to package. So this was put together and most organizations have been progressing towards it. So for example, on the ESPR 2024, there's already been a lot of progress on it, but you could see that there has been update on the ESPR, had something up, and also this pitch to passport thing that you might hear in ESPR that comes up with battery. And the more you look at all these regulations, there are a lot of similarity on services that are needed to fulfill these regulations. And to really simplify it, my simple rule of thumb is most of these regulations are looking at reducing carbon. So people need to look at footprint on a product level or an organizational level and see how to improve processes, one, to track it, and subsequently to reduce it. That's one. The second one is some type of a supply chain assessment, because it's no more about just the person who's producing or servicing it, but we all have supply chains, and that be it a tier 1 or tier 2, but we need to look at auditing along the supply chain, either for carbon or for other elements or sustainable practices. So there's a supply chain element that you would consider in most of these regulations. The third one is related to separate accounting. It could be on packaging, it could be on pre-sampling. So it's this whole of whatever resource that we create, outbeat, take it back into its life cycle and rotate it through the system. So most assessments will touch these three elements. Some type of a carbon assessment, some type of a supply chain assessment. And the supply chain assessment could be environmental factors. Are they polluting things? The supply chain assessment could be on the social factors, on how are they treating employees, because the whole sustainability is about balancing the three different aspects of environment, social ecologies. And the last aspect, of course, is the suppose company, but yet technology needs to be upgraded. So if I'm going to summarize all these regulations in three critical services that people would need to prepare themselves for, would be carbon, supply chain, and third one be some type of a separate economy that impacts your business, in addition to technological advancements. Most of you might have heard about it. If not, this came out a couple of weeks ago, few weeks back. EU Omnibus. And with all these terminologies, sometimes I lose all these words between my. I mean, this is something that's important that we all need to keep our money on. So this was put together about 4 weeks back. It was a long process, but it was released 4 weeks back, and there are some serious changes that has been proposed by this omnibus. If you've read the documentation, there is like these 4 documents addressing 4 different proposals addressing different aspects of the EU Green Deal upgrade, that the team went through it and it's summarized for internal use and for our customers, and I more or less won't summarize all of these. The first one is taxonomy. With any change, we need to make sure that they're all speaking the same language. Europe has always done that, not just for sustainability, for all the technologies. So here, Europe has been working on simplifying the taxonomy just to make sure that they all talking about the same. And the main rules is, for example, there has been a lot of on the scoping on CSRD. There was initially, I think it was like any organization with more than 250 people was subject to the regulations. But now, on the taxonomy level, EU has now set this policy to say that 250 is like, we're going to get a lot of SMEs already. So we need to make sure that we raise the bar to at least 1,000. And this is what I mean by, with this omnibus, the regulators are taking the any of SMEs and also the big organization of reducing the regulatory cost, but the big use it as it means to drive innovation. So there are some critical taxonomy changes there. But I will go first to the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, because this is a mandatory must that was supposed to keep it now, where initially it required the entire supply chain to be audited. And you could see that on the right-hand side that the proposal is to stick just to the key ones. That makes a big difference for most of the organizations, because this is additional cost either picked up by the organization itself or by the supply chain, which would have an impact on the final customer for sure. So Europe wants to become more competitive in this field, and reducing it to just tier ones, limiting it to just tier ones, is going to have a positive impact on the cost and ultimately. And on the timeline, as I mentioned, this was initially, the deadline was July 2026. And now the deadline is for B1. It's now postponed to 2028. So it gives not just increasing the number of staff in the company, but also the timeline. So you see that there are 3 major regulations there, and there they talk about pushing the timeline even further. So it gives organizations more time to prepare for the transition, because this was also the feedback that European Union got from various SMEs and also big organizations that were not really ready to make these changes happen with all the global changes that's going through. And also on the monitoring side, you would see that there are again clear changes from doing annual supply chain audits to making sure that these are done every 5 years. So from a tech industry perspective, it's probably not good. But from an overall economy perspective, that is the right thing to do, because it is not just about making money. It's really about making this transformation for our society. Also, what's also interesting is this is a directive. And on the liabilities and sanctions, every member state could define their own liabilities and fines. On a political level, this is a nightmare, because when we speak to our customers, it's like, okay, I want to take it to France, and France has got a slightly different charging system, got to have it generally, and Portugal has got a completely different one. And these are discussions we have with our lawyers and our customers, and I'm getting more gray hair. But on the positive level, historically, some of the regulations, it's been the same fine set for everybody, especially if it's a directive. But with this, it's now about flexibility also between member states to see how to put the fines in. So for a manufacturer going into multiple countries, the net impact of fines could be lower. But again, fines are there, just there to think about it. Hopefully, we are preventing the fines and actually making it happen. If national deviation, there are national deviations in there. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier on wave one, which is all the non-financial reporting directive. So anybody who is listed would need to start doing these things in Europe for sure. There are no major changes there, other than the reporting starts from 2028, who I shared in the previous slide, which is supposed to start in 2027. So that's not even a delay for that in terms of formal reporting. But on the scope 2, which is the wave 2, which is any organization greater than 250 employees and or 50 million revenue and or 25 million balance sheet, one of those 3 criteria, that's now increased way high. That this now eliminates a good group of organizations. So especially here, the focus today was on SMEs. So most SMEs would fall under the wave 2, which means that for CSRD, probably don't need to do anything about it in the short term. Of course, don't take my word for it. Do the assessment yourself. If not, seek to us. We're happy to look at it. And again, on day 3, which is primarily the SMEs, it's completely out of scope because it's not really got additional access on a small medium-sized enterprises. That's from the CSRD. CBAM, now they get mentioned that we have the CBAM kicking through probably next year. So in principle, again, the proposal from Omnibus is importers with less than 50 tons of carbon emissions are now exempt from CBAM. And this was a big challenge for retailers that we discussed in the last 12 to 24 months because they're not putting so much, but they use a lot of living parts. So when we were calculating it, they were well below the 50-ton mark. And it was creating a lot of confusion on the supply chain for retailers. And now, more or less, for most of them, they could do their own quick shipping college to say it's not going to impact 3 bits. Maybe for the steel, cement, where the re-polluting industry still got impact. And at the 50-ton mark would eliminate some of the pressure on the organizations which are on the edge of CBAM, which was creating more confusion before. And then on the compliance deadline, you could see that the last one statement where it was supposed to be from 31st of May next year, that the deadline was set, but that is now pushed towards 31st of August. So the yearly reports was supposed to be every May. People should audit it and put it in. But now the commission said that instead of May every year, August. So all these little negotiations are put in, and some of these discussions was really interesting that the lawyers from different organizations were pushing, and there's a lot of negotiations of pushing these things. So it went from May deadline to August deadline. That's one, yearly reporting. I didn't really understand the reasoning for it other than people wanting a bit more push. Because, for example, if it's in Japan, you don't have the financial year ending as March. And if people say it's late, but it makes sense. But I think Europe was companies year ending as December. So but very busy or in August. May or August, it's not going to make much of a difference. I was loping it, but anyway, it pushed. So something to look at. But the bigger one is the first deadline is now set for 2027. It's 2026. So there is a mid-year delay for the CDAP report. So that is more as the 3 directives, the CSDPD, CSRD, and CBAM. These are the 3 main directives that are in fact upon the omnibus proposal. And again, the EU terminologies, it took me some years to really get my head around it. The proposal is there, and then you could see the council adoption dates are published. So all of this was published in the harmonized EU journal on the 16th of April 2025, which is last week. But then for CSRD, the CSDDD, the proposal publication is being put out, but it still needs to be discussed and ratified and everything. So we don't really know whether the proposal is going to be accepted, whether it's going to be pushed forward. So it's still a press paper. So the message there is the proposal is out there, the timeline is out there, everything's getting hit. But unless it is finally accepted, we don't really know. And with the current global economic situation, it has the possibility of even getting pushed out, maybe. So that would be the message in there, that we still need to wait for the formal acceptance of the proposal on the omnibus. But in the meantime, as I said earlier, most of these regulations look at the three aspects: reducing carbon, looking at the supply chain for ESG, looking at circular economy aspects of it. And this is something that telling most organizations to say, where are you now and how do you to prepare? So in summary, the main changes onto the proposal are addressing the taxonomy, which I touched on, and the three directives, which looks at simplification and slight delay in terms of timeline. There is one other, which I didn't touch, is the EU funding. How the funding should be more accessible. So it's similar to the Chinese Green Deal funds. On the omnibus proposal, there's an entire chapter of how to access funding. That's not a specialist area that the suit focuses on. So I didn't cover that in detail, but there are three directives would have an impact on maybe some of you. Maybe it's a good news. And any questions, we can have a chat of it.
Robin, thank you very much. Oh, thank you. I heard a lot of people moving around papers. It means that the presentation is interesting. People are taking notes. And in particular, I think that since today we are really focusing on SMEs, what you really described here, if approved by the Commission, is going to have a real impact on their operation. I think that now we can start with the most engaging probably session. We're going to have a 30 minutes quick discussion, and I invite all of you to jump in at any moment. I just prepare some questions that I think might be relevant for the audience, but I also invite everyone to really prepare questions and be ready to ask, since we have these experts who are willing to respond. You might as well take advantage of that. And I wanted to start with Tobias. And in particular, I wanted to ask you, I try to stay on the regulations, as Prabhu was explaining before, and I wanted to ask you whether you think that such a dynamic change of regulations can be of a positive or negative impact on the daily operation of European companies that are here in China.
Yes, I think I know. Yeah, a short answer is yes. It can be negative and it can be positive, and it will be both. Just maybe to start from the beginning, you explained partially how these regulations came into place, and I would just like to elaborate a little bit on that, how we get to where we are right now. In Europe, we have these local countries with local politicians. These local politicians have some ideas, and based on this, they want to try to get elected. This can be one person saying, I want that all of the suppliers need to say there's no waste in that tire production line. This might be their thing. Based on this, they get elected. And that maybe they end up in the EU Parliament, or they end up in some commission in Brussels. And then they encounter professional people who give them good ideas. These people have, they're well dressed. They come either from a company just giving advice, or is our company is direct, like the TÜV, helping them to pretty much tell them, like, if you do it like this, then it will be easier for you, it will look professional, and all of the parties will be happy about this. So these are companies who have their own interest, obviously. Like there might be a certification company who wants that at best you should be all certified by a third party. It would kind of does make sense to put this in there, and that there are maybe other companies who want different things to make it easier for them to work at their supply chain. So they come up with some process, some idea, and this is still ongoing. It's not finalized. And then they make some decision, and then that goes back to the countries. So they still have to implement it in their own regulation. And then they again think about also, wow, how can I make all of the companies in my country happy about that? So they don't want to have any conflicts with the people who voted, who elected them. So they water that down also further a little bit more, and then it comes to the companies. So what we see at this point is this highly watered down process, and this is ending up on our desk at this point. On what I've seen so far, we have one customer who is part of a bigger group, and they came last year, for example, to us already with questions from a sustainability audit. It is that's maybe one question as an example. Uh, One main question was, of course, what do you do to reduce your carbon footprint of your operation? And my immediate thought was, well, I, for example, don't send 3 people from Europe on a plane trip for 4 days to another continent to ask the serious question. I won't do that. It's stupid. But nevertheless, I still had to write it down. And I couldn't write that down because then I would get other problems. But it is what be my honest answer. But the main reason why we try to reduce flights is we are, as a company, operating as a economic organization. We try to generate money, and this is the force what drives all decisions in any company. Does it make money? Does it not make money? But it's not necessarily what makes the air cleaner. Not for as a company. Um, I don't. Sounds harsh, but I don't care. As a person, as a private person, I do care a lot. I have 3 children. I want them to breathe clean air. As a company, I want this regulation to be as clear, as easily as possible in the can be. But I don't see this happening at this point from Europe. And in China, of course, I do hope that there would be more straightforward development. But and I can see a lot of things have changed. The air got cleaner. Yes. I'm not entirely sure about the last 2 years. Last week we looked quick. We had 2 micrograms per cubic square meter per cubic meter here at this location. It was bad. It still isn't good. Also, water quality was mentioned. That is bad. In China, we have about 21% of the world population. 6% of the clean water supply is in China. The water quality is getting worse slowly year on year. There is still a lot to do. Does it concern me from a company, from an operational point of view? No, it doesn't. We don't need this for our business, for a country. We do need this. So I do hope that the Chinese government will have a more practical approach in the future. But at this point, I have to admit, I don't really see that also.
And Prabhu, staying on the topic of regulations, as I think that really touched upon it very extensively. When I was reading your presentation and when I was preparing the deck of slides, and I was trying to figure out which of the different regulations that you presented is going to have the major impact on operations for instance. What do you think?
Really depends on the industry segment that the SMEs are working on. In terms of, if I was an SME senior leader, I would look at what technologies can I provide to have a positive impact on sustainability. Meaning, we work with a lot of carbon capture systems, hydrogen systems. So how do we bring these new technologies in that's going to have a positive impact a real impact on him, or contribute towards a supply chain of those services. And the good thing is these technologies are still in its early stages. Carbon capture has been there for quite some time. For the size of carbon capture that we need to address, we don't have scale-up solutions yet. And so that's one. Okay, on the whole recyclability is something that is really important because we are, mentioned about use all polluting something. And we can all do the little things of how much water bottles are they using. Do we really switch up the lights when we leave the meeting? We expect simple things that we would really need to educate people in the organization. I know it sounds like very simple going back to school days, rarely is Eric switch off the night before you go. So I would say that in addition to the business opportunity of looking at technologies and being part of that supply chain from a business perspective, look at mindset changes within the employee group. Well, what can we be within our space of 15, 20 people to make our tool space is a bit more sustainable? Regulation or not. And then, of course, from the regulation perspective, it is going to get easier. I even explained that, yes, the regulations are there, but I've also worked in industries where there is no regulations. For example, we sit in a lot of advisory groups we invest, and the last 2 months, some of the regulations are literally getting the. But the risk of no regulation is also quite high. So we can also ask, is the Green Deal or the omnibus is really going to have one? But if it's not there, how do we stop greenwashing? So that's the other side of it, because everybody can say that. I have a lot of people in the past who say, hey, I want to do carbon neutrality and I need a piece of paper. But to really do carbon neutrality, do we really know the complete carbon footprint and how much you're doing and how much are you offsetting? Not really. As a species, we're still learning and evolving. So coming back to your question, 3 things. One is, from a business opportunity perspective, look at areas where the new technologies will have an impact and how are we going to be part of that supply chain so you can grow in the business rather than see this as a limitation for your business. 2 is educate your own employees, your suppliers, to just be a bit more considerate of what they're doing around in their own space. We can't change the world, but we can change the space of the table that we sit around with. And the third one is, out of the regulations, look at the ones that are meaningful to you and try to make them your requirements so that they can actually move forward in these topics. And when it's not working, highlight it around the countries, and there are voices that's listening and adapt to these regulations. Hope that makes sense.
That for us, when we were trying, we had similar questions, and we tried to answer it. And in particular, last September, the EU SME Centre organized a great mission here in China. And the question we had is, we have these 9 companies that are European, that are working with cutting-edge technologies to cutting carbon emissions, for example. Where do we take them in China? So which areas are the most receptive of these technologies? And I think that I can come to Mr. Liu, because scrolling down the decision list, I saw that many questions pointed out that which regions, which cities should we look at when we want to really bring forward our technologies and try a receptive environment. So I wanted to ask you whether you had some opinions from the perspective of your industry, whether you want to first introduce something.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriel from Tonggai Spring Power. The company specializes in power trading side. And the Tonggai Spring Power is a subsidiary of Tonggai Smart Energy, a company specialized in the creation of renewable energy solutions in China. And I'm currently doing carbon market research at Tonggai Spring Power. So, and back to that question, I'd like to share my opinion from the power trading perspective. So, of course, cities, economic development, and natural resources are important factors to consider. However, when there is a solar project, wind project, or storage project, since we are economically driven organizations. So finally, in the end, what we be concerned is how we balance retention costs in cities with more mature toll market mechanisms, and we can use more flexible use of the market rules and take advantage of wider smart price rise to make more profit from the market. And for example, China's sport market is organized at the provincial level, which means each province has its own trade rules. In the most province, they still rely on the forward color market, and it doesn't have the sport market. So the point here is, if you choose a city or province that has a sport market, there could be more chances to profit from the market rules. So, forward market, sport market, it should be a way in part of which city to choose.
Well, naturally, as since we personally know Terao, because we set up, we paid that with your company for different projects, be it different events. And we know that you, as we mentioned before, specialize in sustainable buildings, so how to make greener the building option plan. So on this regard, which parts of China do you think that are the most receptive to the changes that your company might bring in terms of decarbonizing building?
So the question is about which part of China?
Yeah, still on the region.
Okay. Yes, for us, we are based in Shanghai. So a lot of our projects are in the Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shanghai region actually. And in the regulation, also in the statistics of rebuilding, there are more rebuildings in Jiangsu. So this is a very active region over there. And also Guangzhou area, Guangdong province, very active in this regard. As we saw, that there are lead platinum in Shenzhen, but also a lot of lead projects are located in Guangdong province. And of course, you have your Chengdu, Chongqing. These areas are also very active in this sustainability projects. So yes, this is mostly these areas, and of course, Beijing is more pushed by the government because over there is more of the public buildings. The public buildings are pushed to do more green buildings. Yes.
Well, so you mentioned that your company also offers multiple certifications, no, to prove that actually the building is getting greener or is trying to push some effort in order to reduce the carbon footprint. And these directly connects to one of the questions that you received from the audience that I want to address to Tobias. Because, and I think it's a really clever question. We see there's this person who asked me, I have to report to China, I have to report to Europe. How can I avoid the double F? Why do I have to do like the same thing under two different names or two different countries? Do we have any idea of that?
In short, you just make stuff up. You can, of course, well, there is good thought behind all of these ideas, and it does make, of course, sense as a human being to think about these. Well, as I said, as a private person, I do want the air to be clean, but as a company, I do want that people switch on the air condition, but they leave the office because that reduce the cost at the end of the day. So they have very economically driven decision-making process there. Same is what we do in factories. If there's a lot of waste, I want this to be less to reduce cost. And if they still people produce too much waste, apparently it's too cheap for that. And so when we get questions from what we got so far from European companies, then I try to explain this more ways why it is economically more useful to follow these rules. And in many cases, there are good reasons, economical reasons, to be more efficient. But this is the only rule I came up with European companies. Here from China, but I don't really have Chinese customers, so I cannot really answer like. But what I have seen and heard from others is very similar, because they have to always provide documents, and this is also my main complaint to all this. Uh, at this point, it pushes a lot bigger bureaucracy, a lot more documents. We not only people flying to different continents, but just plainly more documents. And then, of course, it creates a new market, which is very positive for you guys, of course. But then, as a company, but I also need to question myself: if do I need a third party to really evaluate a skyscraper as something that is environmentally friendly? Because I don't need numbers. It's a skyscraper. It's not environmentally friendly. The same air skip a nightmare shouldn't be there. But with numbers, I can of course make this very good, and you put a label on it with a certificate. And this China, I think last or 2 years with the CO2 certificates had a very good example of how these things can fail horribly. And they certified bags, they can trade CO2 deals, and well, I think a lot of people got fired because of this, because they finally just looked at documentation, and based on this said, "Ah, yeah, documentation is fine. Let's go ahead with that." But the documents what they got were also not correct. And then how far do you want to go ahead in the chain? Uh, I think what would be necessary is to have a stronger push to remind companies to work economically. And if there's too much waste, then this waste is too cheap. For example, water. Here in China, I think water is too cheap. As a company, of course, I'm very happy that the cost of electricity is fairly even and fairly low, which is very helpful for us. But if this leads to companies just keep on the air condition all the time, well, then apparently it is too cheap. Now we have, I could go on just thousands of examples. With during COVID, the delivery drivers became more and more popular, and I have to admit, sadly, they stayed. They're still delivering. Last weekend, I was with my children in a supermarket, and we bought bananas. They were all packed in a plastic bag. Where I just have to think that it's nature getting up with some kind of natural packaging here. Do we need to put this into another bag? But the reality is, apparently, it is too cheap and too easy to still pack that. And this is one positive development what we get from Europe now, that some companies asked us already, we need to change packaging because we will get new regulations. We need to come up with new designs that are more environmentally friendly. But this is just something what's supposed to come in the future. And there are a few companies which are thinking ahead and planning for this. They come with us. I'm very happy about that, because it brings us new business. We can come up with new designs. This requires new development and brings us business. But it is something what is better for the environment in the future. But the reason why I do it is because it's business for me.
It's a good point. I actually see that one, it drives innovation. But being in the regulated industry for a long time, we do the OA part. But I've been lucky enough to see regulation driving innovation. And these policies are there. Yes, politicians in Europe are putting these policies to keep enacted for short. The smaller ones, at least the bigger ones, are there to really make a big change for the environment or the society, and that really drives innovation. And that is business from an economical perspective. And coming back to the question on Filippo, on the different countries having different regulations, it is not specific to sustainability. This has been the case for at least the 20, 30 years I've been exposed to this topic. And there is an entire industry called global market access, where you look at what regulations are there for this country and what are the gaps, and then you do it once. So, of course, there is additional revenue for somebody like us or an independent global market access organization. And the whole idea is to understand these regulations. And there is a reason why some countries have higher limits and some countries have lower limits. But when it comes specific to sustainability, one thing to really look at is data protection. because I also look after cybersecurity. And here, the regulations are in opposite spectrums. So what is acceptable for China might not be acceptable for Europe. So that is one thing I would really ask your teams to speak to a specialist company as well as lawyers, because there are in these some of the policies where the Chinese requirement and the European requirement are literally in opposite end of the spectrum. And if you don't get it right, that is going to have a legal implication for your organization. But on the technical side, it's going to be relatively easy. So going into these new technologies, it's going to be very interesting to look at the main differences between countries, especially when the requirements are in opposite direction. I think that is the one message I want to leave for you personally.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. So I have one last questions, and then we can open the floor for other questions. The other one to address to Mr. Liu, because when we were having a quick call to organize the event and the panel, I remember that Christian, one of the panelists who couldn't join today, mentioned that he really struggles in access to great energy. And I remember you mentioning that you had many projects that are related to the access to grid energy and how to make it easier for companies to do so. So I wanted to ask you whether you could share a little bit more of this.
Okay, let's say why real case from our provisions. And this case comes from Guangdong-based company, which is one of the leading electric bus manufacturers of China. And here I want to point out that our projects operated by Tonggas Mortgage, other subsidiaries like the Tonggas Wind Power, we Lake and supporting road decision making. Okay, so our main goal is to help our clients to achieve greener and low carbon and the transition. We do this by increasing their use of the renewable energy and solar. It's very common when the sunlight is very strong and our client doesn't have that high demand for the electricity. So those electricity generated from the power of our solar panel that can't be produced. So we also install our clients for the energy storage system. And this is we use the energy storage system to capture the excess electricity when the price is low, and we accessing captures and when the price high, we discharge it to the power grid. So basically, this is how we help our clients to increase their utilization of the rate of the solar power system. But it's only a part of value we bring to our clients. And also we can help them to reduce their energy costs. And this is where our trading come in. And there are several types of electricity products. And we want to go wise, we use the peak value pricing. So we charge the storage system with prices high and the relationship with parts are covered. So now we have solar panels and energy storage systems, but this is still not enough. Well, in my opinion, the key point here is about the price forecasting. So think about that. At a certain point during the day, how to decide in the next few hours whether to charge our clients' storage system with the solar power or to buy cheaper electricity from our grid. So the answer to this question is you should have the ability to give accurate price forecast. And if you can be a little complex, we go further else. I will skip it due to time constraints. So basically, this is how we help our clients to achieve a green energy transition. And we are not just offering them hardwares, and we also offer them full solutions. So we help our clients all time to take production. So we call this business model is EABS, which means thanks for energy as a service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the panelists. I think that now we can open the floor to some questions. We have about 10 minutes. So I'll ask you to be very quick when you ask the question, and the panelists as well when they reply. Because for further questions, you can always reach out to me or to European Chamber if you can send the comments. So feel free to ask your question.
what you explain is not only that you try to explain to your customers also economic advantage of your system. It's not just that your customer want to have green air; they also want to save cost or take advantage of other incentives, tax incentives from the government or other incentives. There is an economic reasoning also behind, isn't it?
Yes, this is true. So when you buy your cost, there's still a concept behind to the gas by the co-fired this cost. So economic players still want those proceed.
I just personally another question I wanted to ask to Prabhu because in the 3 points you touched, one that you mentioned was the supply chain. And we received the question when Rodrigo was this attendee was, how can I really trust, all the different chains of the supply chain to be honest with me when it comes to reporting? Like, should I do also double checking with third parties companies, or can I assume that they will be honest with?
So it depends on the risk. And because this is not a new thing. The supply chain audit has been there for a very long time. And depending on the risk, you then use a third party. So for example, to soup, sometimes we work as a second party. So within the automotive supply chain, aerospace supply chain, it's been there for the last half of the war. It's very common that even at its highest, if something goes down in the aerospace industry, it's going to impact a lot of lives. So you want to make sure that everything is made spot on and there is no jingle the system. And there, they make sure that the supply chain is being audited. When it comes to sustainability, it's open because it's got some not clear, pure technical measures, right? Some of them are carbon, how do we capture carbon? So here, this is where the supply chain really need to look at, are we looking at the environmental aspect or a social aspect or the governance aspect? And the governance aspect is becoming part of the regulation. Where the higher companies are saying that everybody needs to think about ESG. And we want to make sure that at least the tier ones are thinking about how are they getting going. But the senior management team and all organizations are aware of environmental impacts. They have processes and they're investing in the right structures to get the supply chain ready. Because if we don't get the senior management team bought into it, as you highlighted, everybody would look at the cost. So my CFO, if I go to them and say, hey, I need to spend this money, the first thing he's going to say is, how much are we going to get the returns? Which is good because all of us are running a business. But on the other hand, it's also to ensure that there are some minimal reported feedback. So, back to your question, I would really say, in some generic answer, we would really need to look at it case by case, whether the risk is high or low. And if the risk is low, it probably doesn't need a lot of checks and balances. And also with technology coming on, there's like a whole lot of trials that is running on blockchain and on traceability. So if these technological solutions kick in, the audit that we do in 2025, by 2030 is going to be completely different. So a tech industry is likely to be disrupted with all these technologies. How we do audits is also likely to change because of technologies. So that's another aspect you would need to consider in looking into the future. It's not a simple answer, it's complicated. But for a standard one, I would say, look at the risk based on risk. Decide whether you need it a second party or a third party or none. But really keep an eye out for all the technologies that's coming in because we can actually do this more efficiently in the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Oh, we have one question. Have to do with the microphone. Wait.
Hello, Rob. My name is Wei. I'm from Chinger University. Can I sit? Should I stand?
No.
Okay. My question is about the role of the chambers to understand the city and regional level about China. There's a matter of big expansion. We have lots of technologies here in this region. Though we have lots of exports in this region. As university, we work with partners in the UK as well and other countries to provide to the matchmaking sessions for the tech or green energy adversary or matchmaking. I've been curious, that are facing the Europe, for example, aware of the city of Shenzhen and the existence of these technologies here, and how much they can do to promote themselves to the this member of Chamber of Commerce and other widely the SMEs in Europe. Thank you.
It's, I think this is one of the upsides, and this is the what I'm hoping for. What is coming out of this discussion, because to be honest, the regulations what is right now in place creates mostly paperwork. It creates the question: do we need another consultant in between? Do I need to pay more money to get some kind of certificate? This is I would consider for most part more a positive development. It's part of the process, yes, sure. Uh, uh, but that is what we are feeding right now. What I'm hoping, not immediately as a company, partially maybe also, but especially as a private person, is that there will be more discussion about what technologies are there, what can be built, and what can be newly developed, and what is available. Because this is a discussion what is in Europe very slowly happening, and you can see vast differences between the different countries. Here in China, or especially here in Shenzhen, we always complain that in winter the air quality gets bad, because during summer, for the most part, it is quite okay. But in winter, then it gets bad. But when you look at Europe, you see similar situation, because at Eastern Europe, also people start to eat with cold or with everything what they can burn. And this is a similar situation what we do have here in China. There is also there are these development hubs with great technologies in Europe also centralized at some places more than in others, and this should be more developed, like treatment of waste, recycling of materials. That huge difference within Europe and here in China as well. And I think we should note, and this is what I'm hoping for, that we look more into all the opportunities which are out there and then have more exchange, because only that will really make a change to air quality and water quality, for example. And as a small company, well, yes, we try to look into these small things. But for us, the direct part, for example, is that we get jobs to design different kind of packaging, which have a better impact on the environment. That is a small thing. But when it comes to the treatment of waste, for example, there are bigger concepts with bigger investments needed. What most small companies or private enterprises would not do, especially not in China, because this would be a long-term investment with very late returns, if at all. But you just get the communication started and collect the knowledge and experience. I think to have this discussion, especially in Shenzhen, is very helpful, and that's what I'm looking forward in this discussion.
Well, I think that with this hope we can conclude our event here. Before leaving, I plan to invite you to fill out this survey we have prepared for you. As we are approaching the end of the project, we are trying to gather feedback in order to that report to the Commission on the successes or failures on the project. We hope always that we get a good review, of course. But really, I wanted to thank the speakers. Thank you very much for joining. I think that the discussion was very, very interesting. The presentations as well. I hope that our online audience benefited as much as we did here on site. Thank you very much for the question. So it's very much appreciated. And with that, I would also like to thank the European Chamber for helping us organizing the event, and of course, Leose for hosting us today. So thank you very much, and see you. Yeah, thank you very much, Filippo, and the panel was great. Yeah, to listen to your comments and the good questions. You like the pen. So I just remember I'm 20 years in China, a little bit longer, and I also remember that I in Germany in the 70s, 80s, we used to say that time we have the
the photos, we have to develop the film, right? We used to say, you can just go to the river. There's a lot of chemicals inside. You can develop your film, your photos. Yeah. So that was long ago, and it happens in China also, of course. Yes, but a little bit later. And then we have all this development, this new, separating the waste and all these things. And last week I went to the China Plus, this plastic exhibition that I went. They had this the new Shenzhen World Exhibition Center in the north of the airport. It was the first time I see this exhibition center fully occupied all the 20 exhibition halls. Amazing. I was really astonished to see that. And so what the technology have tried and still try to find alternative materials to replace the plastic, because plastic has polluted the oceans and so on. But I think if you listen to those experts, if you can find a way, a solution to recycle 90%, 95% of these plastic, and the technology is there, the cleaning, the recycling, the any production, then I think you have a much better way for the clean environment. And this is only one step. I said I'm 20 years in China, but the first time I come to China was 1993, 94. I traveled to Xining in the Qinghai province, right? I thought, I will see the pure nature, and the people were very, very were like kind of farmers and so countryside. I go there, I was so surprised. Everybody is eating out of this styrofoam boxes, their lunch. So much waste, really, in that remote place. Okay, now, so, and with these deliveries, it's not getting better. Somebody sent me a quarter of wine. Oh, this was such a big box that I don't know, they put a lot of packing material, which is not necessary. And I ordered something, some shelf. And the shelf is like a box. And they have a huge box, hardwood box, and inside to me, it looks like they're using this to get rid of their waste. They put the cutters, or they cannot throw away, they put in, sent to me. Yeah. Okay, so that is the situation, and we can only the education that people learn how to separate the waste and be thoughtful about it. This is the only way to go. And we also, from the company, we have a sustainability audit. Okay, I'm the first tier supplier to medical device manufacturers. Number A comes, number B, number C, number D, all come and do the sustainability audit. Some of them do it online, and you need to submit some documents for our supplier. So there's a lot of paperwork. Whether it's really the sustainable things behind, we need to question ourselves. So to go into something with an honest mind will be very important. So it's just a few thoughts from myself. So thank you very much for all of the participants, and thank you all here. Very important.